In July of 1954, the greatest football team ever assembled walked onto a rain-soaked pitch in Switzerland and lost the only game that actually mattered. They hadn't lost in 4 years. 50 games, 1 defeat. They'd humiliated this exact opponent 2 weeks earlier, 8-3. Statisticians would later confirm what everyone in that stadium already believed. This Hungarian side carried the highest rating any national team has ever recorded. A number so dominant, it wouldn't be surpassed for 60 years. And yet, when the trophy was handed out, it wasn't in their hands. We like to believe football is fair, that talent wins out, that if you assemble the best players, run the best system, and show up with the better team, the trophy finds its way to you eventually. But history keeps insisting otherwise. Some nations produce genius after genius, generation after generation, and still go home empty-handed. Not because they weren't good enough, because something else, something rarely talked about, decided the outcome before a ball was even kicked. So what is it? What's the real force separating champions from nearly men? The answer starts in Bern, and it's stranger than anyone expected. Hungary's captain that day was Ferenc Puskás, a player so far ahead of his era that opposing federations studied him like a problem to be solved. 6 minutes into the final, he scored. 2 minutes later, his teammate doubled the lead. It looked exactly like it should inevitable. Then a German defender did something that had nothing to do with football. He kicked Puskás. Not the ball. The man. It wasn't given as a foul worth remembering, but the damage was done. The greatest player alive was now running on a damaged ankle for the rest of the match, for the rest of the tournament. The magician had been quietly disarmed, and almost nobody clocked it in real time. Still, Hungary were 2 goals up. Still, this should have been over. But West Germany clawed one back, then another. By the time the game reached its final 10 minutes, the score was level, and something about the German players felt different, sharper. Faster than they had any right to be, this late, in this rain, against this opponent. Decades later, researchers went looking for an explanation, and what they found was unsettling. Evidence pointed to German players receiving injections before kickoff injections some were told contained vitamin C. What they may have actually contained was methamphetamine. If true, it wasn't a hunch or a conspiracy theory anymore. It was a possible explanation for exactly the kind of late-game surge that shouldn't happen against the best team in the world. And the story doesn't end with the final whistle. In the months that followed, several German players fell seriously ill. Liver disease, conditions doctors couldn't easily explain. Whatever had been in those syringes may have cost more than a football match. Meanwhile, in Budapest, the loss wasn't just a loss, it was a wound. The team that returned home wasn't greeted with parades. They hid outside the capital for days, waiting for the anger in the streets to cool. This was a nation under communist rule, already simmering with resentment, and its football team had just been humiliated by the country it had beaten by 5 goals 2 weeks earlier. Some historians go further than metaphor here. They argue that the fury unleashed that July planted a seed that helped fuel the Hungarian uprising just 2 years later. A football match, quietly reshaping the politics of a nation. So if talent alone decided history, Hungary wins that tournament and their golden generation is remembered as untouchable. Instead, one tackle, one final surge, and possibly one syringe rewrote everything. Now here's the part that should really unsettle you. This isn't a one-time anomaly, it's a pattern, and nobody demonstrates it more painfully than the Netherlands. The Dutch have reached 3 World Cup finals, lost all 3. But look closer at how they lose, and it gets even crueler. The Netherlands have never lost a single World Cup match in normal time by more than 1 goal. They don't get outclassed, they get edged. Again and again, in the most agonizing way, football offers, the penalty shootout. Twice eliminated by the same opponent, Argentina, from the spot, in a coin flip disguised as sport. You'd assume a country producing this much sustained football intelligence would eventually just qualify comfortably, every time, as a formality. They didn't. During the exact years Marco van Basten was arguably the most devastating striker on the planet, the Dutch failed to even reach the tournament. Twice. Genius. Sitting at home, watching other nations compete for a trophy, his talent should have guaranteed him a shot at. So if it's not talent, what is it? Dutch football insiders have pointed to something far less romantic than bad luck, the foundations underneath the stars. Domestic clubs no longer testing young players at a high enough level before they're thrown into the deep end of international competition. Prospects leaving too early, developing in systems that don't prepare them for the speed of the world stage. It's not a curse. It's infrastructure quietly failing behind the scenes, invisible until the moment it matters most. And then there's a factor so strange it sounds almost mythological: geography itself. No European nation has ever won a World Cup held anywhere in the Americas. Not once. Not with any generation, any manager, any tactical revolution. Continents, it turns out, might carry their own kind of home advantage that has nothing to do with talent and everything to do with distance, climate, and unfamiliar air. Which brings us back to Bern, and to the strangest twist in this entire story. You'd expect Hungary to hate West Germany forever. Instead, something unexpected happened. As the decades passed, the two teams' winners and the team that should have won began meeting up. Reunions, friendships. The Hungarian goalkeeper later called the bond between the two squads the most extraordinary he'd ever witnessed in international sport, closer than anything typically seen between rivals. Two teams bound not by triumph, but by a single afternoon neither side could fully explain. So, maybe that's the real answer hiding underneath all of this. Winning the World Cup was never simply about who had the best players. It's about who avoided the wrong tackle, who wasn't handed the wrong injection, who didn't lose a coin flip from 12 yards, who built the right foundations before the stars ever arrived, who happened to be playing on the right continent in the right decade. Greatness gets you to the final. Something else, smaller, stranger, and far less fair, decides who actually lifts the trophy.